Good evening. My name is Craig Weiss. I'm one of the assistant principals here at Schreiber. I currently work with the ninth grade, and I know many of you are probably here as incoming parents to hear about our honors program. How many of you have incoming students that are here? Okay. How many of you have students that are a little older, 10th grade, 11th grade? Great, great. For people who are in the live audience, you should know that the presentation is being streamed and being recorded. So there's no need to take pictures or anything of the slides. You can see them all later. And if questions do come up during the course of the presentation, there will be some time set aside at the end for some Q&A. Okay, great. So before we start, I want to welcome you to Schreiber High School, to our beautiful auditorium. I want to welcome our principal, Dr. Katie Baer, right here. Our Director of Guidance, Mr. Justin Rainey. Thank you both for joining us today. And shortly you'll meet some of our department chairs who are here to also give you some details more specifically about the programs that we're involved with. So we're here tonight to talk about honors and AP and what that means. And so that means a lot of different things, and there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of pressure on some of those things. And so we really want to help parents and students understand what our program is about and what this is all about. And so we're going to talk about what courses are available. We're going to talk about what to expect. We're going to talk about the specific content areas. And we're going to talk about eligibility for these courses and what waivers mean. So here's a list of the courses that we offer. Remember, this is all going to be online, so you don't need to record this, but you can see they're broken down into what's offered freshman year, and then what's offered in year available for sophomores. There are courses for juniors and seniors, but since we know the majority of people involved in watching this presentation are the parents of incoming ninth graders or current ninth graders going to 10th, we're kind of focusing on this today. So the first you'll notice that we have our honors bio, which I know is a big topic because the letters went out recently about where placements are, and I know that's what a lot of parents are here to learn about. But you'll also see our honors 9 for math, as well as our AP Seminar, which is a new course for our freshmen, or that freshmen can take should they choose to. And then we'll spend a little less time on the sophomore year options, but they'll be spoken about as well. What do we expect in an honors course? What is an honors course? How is that different than a course that is at a Regents level, a course that is at a standard level, whatever word you want to use to describe that? In short, the expectations are higher for the students. The work is more independent. The students are expected to do more. Now, I remember all the way back to when I was in 8th grade, and I was in my earth science class. And I remember I happened to be in an honors class, and I remember, and I will never forget this, we had a paper to do. And the teacher was not really happy with us after he read our papers. And he turned them, and he gave them back to us, and he said, you know, honor students don't make spelling mistakes. Honor students check their work for grammar, right? Honor students make sure that they understand the definitions of their words. Now today, students have access to all sorts of resources. We were just using dictionaries back in the day. We had to proofread everything by hand, but I think the point stuck with me that it's about ownership and responsibility for the work. Right? That's the difference between the honors and the other courses. The students that are ready to take that step. And so who is that honors student? It's that independent student who's ready to move on. And now, coming from Weber to Schreiber, and I have been at Schreiber, this is my 21st year. It is a big transition for every student. It does not matter if they're an athlete, it does not matter if they're into the arts, it does not matter if academics has always been their strong point. This is a really big transition. And so when a student is moving from Weber to Schreiber and then right into honors, it's like they're taking 2 steps, right? It's a much bigger step to move into that honor. And it's okay if everyone is not ready. The most important thing is that this is an individual decision for you and for your family. What's right for the person next to you may not be right for you. And that's fine. And that's why we have so many options and so many opportunities to enter the honors program at different levels. And so as an incoming 9th grader, maybe I don't want honors bio this year, but maybe the next year I want to try honors chemistry, right? Or I'm not ready for AP Seminar, but as a sophomore, I'm going to try AP History. It's also a balance of what else does your child do in their life? Are they a 3 C's athlete? Are they involved in the plays? Do they have a part-time job? Right? What other commitments do they have? The thing that is really different about honors level work is the workload, right? And so you'll hear specifically about the different courses themselves, but that's really the difference. And then for the parents that are thinking about their children moving from 9th to 10th grade, now we're talking about maybe not 1 or 2 honors courses, but the possibility for 3 or 4 or 5, right? And so what is that balance for you, for your child, for your family? When I was in college, 5 classes was a lot. And some of our students choose to challenge themselves to take 6 or 7 or 8 AP classes. That's 8 college classes. Plus they have a phys ed class. Plus they have a health class. And so it's thinking about that balance. It's thinking about mental health. It's thinking about what is best as a whole picture. Right? And that's not to discourage you. That's to help make thoughtful decisions as we go through this, because that's really what this is about, is making a thoughtful decision that's right for you and is right for your family. Is it a good fit? That, again, is something you can decide. Now, what's really nice about Schreiber, I really appreciate it, is that everyone has the opportunity to succeed. What that means is, well, let's say your child isn't recommended for a certain honors course or an AP course. That doesn't mean they can't try it. And what we have is a little bit of a safety net, where should something not go right early on in the course, they can change courses, right? So they can move from the AP into the Regents level course, for example. And there's no penalty for that. The challenge is that might involve a schedule change. So maybe they're changing their social studies class, but now the new class only fits where their English class was, and so now they have to move a few things around, and they wind up in a lot of different classes. But we do encourage people to try. We firmly believe that every student has the right to earn their success, in whatever that looks like. And again, this is a very individual decision, and I would say not a decision to make lightly. So I am not the science chair. Currently the science chair is Mr. Campanelli. He's not available today, so I'm going to step in. I'm a former science chair. Any of you who came to curriculum night heard my spiel about that. And so I'm going to talk about the science program. I'm very familiar with it, and I know that's what a lot of you want to talk about. And what I've said about honors bio in particular for years is that honors bio is not the hardest course that your child will take. It is the first hard course, potentially, that they will take, because it is at a different level than Earth Science at Weber. Earth Science at Weber is a fantastic course. It's an accelerated course, which means it's given a year early. It's not an honors course. And so what is the difference? When you and I were in school, biology involved a lot of body systems. It involved a lot of kind of comparative anatomy and those kinds of things. The new state curriculum doesn't have that. The new state curriculum has a different focus. That's fine. The honors curriculum is also including those things that you and I think of as a little more traditional biology. And so what does that do? If you're including both of those things, the course has to move faster, or else you're not getting everything in, right? If you're including both of those things, there has to be more work that's done independently because you can't get through all of those things. And so this course is a fast-moving course that involves independent work, that involves writing, involves research paper, other writing assignments. It's very different in that way. Now, the Regents course is a very challenging course, especially with NGSS. That's the Next Generation Science Standards, for those maybe not familiar with the education acronym. And so that is a great course. It involves investigations. It's more about the process of what scientists do than it is about the content of biology. It's fantastic. It's just not as rigorous as the honors course. And so students in the honors course should be prepared to do more reading, more writing, and more independent work. Here's what we know, because we've been collecting data for a long time. You were sent a letter that gave you one of 3 placements for honors bio. The students that were placed into honors bio, that scored well on our matrix, which is a multidimensional assessment, we know with a good amount of certainty that those students have a good chance of being successful. However, if it's not for you, you can opt out of that. Okay? The next group of students got a letter that said you can opt in, kind of the middle group. And what we found is, yeah, we're pretty sure, but we're not 100% here. So, take that data, think about who you are as a student, think about what you want, what you're interested in, and make a decision if you want to opt in. And so that is different than the term waiver that we'll talk about in a moment. To opt in simply means, okay, I take this under advisement, I want to do it, opt me in. I'm good. The third group, those students who scored lower than those numbers, lower than that second cut score on our matrix, those students were kind of saying, ooh, let's take a step back for a second. Based on prior performance and based on our experience, you might struggle in this honors course. Again, that doesn't mean your child cannot take the course. What that means is, here's our advice. We think you have a much better chance of being successful in the Regents course. And that group would be the group that we call a waiver. So do students waive in to honors bio? They do. Okay. Are some of them successful? They are. Of the group of students that tend to change their program and move from the honors to the Regents, the largest group does come from that group that waived in. And so those are just the statistics, but everyone is not a statistic, everyone is different, everyone is unique. And so this slide talks a little, there we go. In 10th grade, the honors option is honors chemistry and science. If students were in honors bio and did well and have the appropriate math level, honors chemistry is a great choice. If students were in Regents biology and they can perform at the appropriate math level, honors chemistry is a great choice. Chemistry is much different than biology. And so if you're thinking about what's right for my child, biology tracks a little bit more closely to social studies and English performance than it does to math performance. There is actually more vocabulary in freshman biology than there is in a first-year foreign language. Chemistry tracks much more closely to math. And so what you need to be successful in chemistry, in honors chemistry, is facility with math. And so that's why we ask that students are in that honors math program in 10th grade, or at least accelerated so they've completed geometry. When you're working on your chemistry problems, you don't want to spend the time figuring out the math behind it. You want the math to be there so you can spend your time on the chemistry. And if you're spending your time on the math, you're going to be spending your wheels on the math and not get to the chemistry. And so that's really why that math recommendation is there. Have there been students in non-honors, non-accelerated math in honors chemistry? Yes. They have struggled more. When we look at the data, when we look at the statistics of who's struggling in honors chem, it's the students who are not accelerated or honors in math. Again, is that every student? It's not. But that's what we see. So that's really where we are with science, with biology and chemistry. So here's that typical path from bio to chem that we were talking about a moment ago. Students move from honors bio to honors chem. So in Regents bio, you can move to honors chem if you're in that right math level, if that's where you seem to fit in. For students or for parents who are watching and are thinking beyond 10th grade, there are a multitude of AP and honors options beyond the 10th grade. The science department has all of the AP science classes that exist, basically. We have AP Physics 1, AP Physics 2, AP Physics C. So 30 different AP Physics classes, AP Chemistry, AP Biology, AP Environmental Science. Question that often comes is, well, if I don't do the honors route, can I get into AP? Absolutely. It's finding that path, that entry point, that on-ramp that's right for you and for your child. Next up is our math chair, Dr. Brian Gorman, who's going to talk about our math program. Oh, sure. Go ahead. Sure. I'm going to repeat the question just because we're streaming, not screaming, sorry. That's probably what you were doing how you got laryngitis. It's what was in my brain. The question is, do the students in the honors and the Regents course both take the Regents exam? And the answer is that yes, they do. Okay. Absolutely. And the question is, what is the difference between honors and AP? So AP courses are courses that follow College Board curriculum that may grant college credit depending on the college the child attends if they decide to accept that credit. And those courses culminate in an AP exam. AP exams are given in May, first 2 weeks in May. And the student can score 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 on an AP exam. A 5 is roughly equivalent to an A. A 4 is roughly equivalent to a B. A 3 is roughly equivalent to a C, etc. And colleges that do accept AP credit are looking for at least a 3. It varies widely by school. And sometimes at a college it varies by department within. And so the psychology department may only accept a 5. The biology department might accept a 4. Those kinds of things. Honors are courses that are designed to, in many cases, prepare students for that AP level. So they're introducing rigor. They're introducing advanced topics. They're delving deeper into the curriculum. So for honors bio, for example, we do see that as a pre-AP course to get the students ready for that. Same thing with honors chemistry. And I'm sure you'll hear similar things from the other departments as well. Absolutely. Okay. Now, without further ado, our math chairman, Dr. Brian Gorman.
Hi, good evening. Okay, so the first math course that students can take in ninth grade, it's really our only ninth grade math option for math, is Math 9 Honors. So Math 9 Honors differs a little bit from the 8th grade algebra course that students would take at Weber, because that course covers the Algebra 1 Regents curriculum. The way our honors courses are structured is they are not only honors content, where they cover the material in a much greater depth and rigor, but they also accelerate as well. So our 9H course covers both the full geometry course and select Algebra 2 topics. In addition, the content extends beyond just the Regents level content in significantly greater depth and rigor. So our honors courses are a different experience than kids have experienced at Weber. There's much more content in it, goes at a faster pace, much more rigorous, and such. Students do take in 9 Honors the Geometry Regents in June. In addition, teaching and learning focuses on building a deeper conceptual understanding of the content. Foundation, strengthening procedural fluency, and applying mathematical knowledge to solve complex problems. Math 9H is designed for students who demonstrate a strong mathematical foundation and exemplary performance in 8th grade mathematics. Often we look for students that earn an A or higher to be successful in Math 9 Honors. Similar to science, we find that students that might not achieve the A may find struggles in Math 9 Honors. Our goal for really our honors pathway throughout is really to just build a challenging mathematical foundation that prepares students for continued success through all their honors courses, and really is the pathway where it culminates in AP Calculus BC as a senior. So that's our 9th grade option. Moving on to 10th grade, Math 10 Honors is also a combination of 2 courses. It's the honors level rigor, but also accelerated, so it moves at a faster pace. Because it's also accelerated, allows our honors program and pathway just to cover enough content and curriculum so students are prepared for the Calculus BC. So Math 10H completes the Algebra 2 content that they started in 9 Honors, and then covers select pre-calculus topics, so about half of pre-calculus. Same thing, content extends beyond just the Regents level curriculum and content, and goes into much greater depth and rigor. In Math 10 Honors, students would take the Algebra 2 Regents in June. So this course is designed for students who have really performed very strongly in Math 9 Honors. So they would have a teacher recommendation based on their performance. And again, 10 Honors, just like 9 Honors, really emphasizes deep conceptual understanding, strengthening procedural fluency, and applying their mathematical knowledge to solve complex problems. And our goal throughout, again, is just to build this foundation to prepare students for all of the honors coursework for the pathway, which culminates senior year in AP Calculus BC. In addition, starting in 10th grade, we do have 3 math AP electives. We have 2 computer science electives and AP statistics. The difference between our 2 AP computer science electives, one is AP Computer Science Principles. This is more designed for like an introductory or beginning level AP course for students that don't have much experience with computer programming. So this course is designed where the students learn programming and they use the Python programming language. The prerequisite for this course is just successful completion of Algebra 1, and really for students that have an interest in just learning more about the computer sciences and different topics in computer science. The other computer science course would be AP Computer Science A, which is a little more of an advanced or for an experience level for students that may have taken coding clubs at Weber or have past experience with computer science. Computer Science A focuses on the Java programming language. It's a much more heavier programming language. So for this prerequisite, either completion of computer science principles or departmental approval based on exceptional achievement in mathematics, such as 9H, a genuine interest in computer science. So we found students that have a past background in computer science benefit more from taking the computer science A versus the computer science principles just for the rigor in the programming language. So many of our research students may opt to pursue computer science A as a sophomore just to pursue their research projects and things like that. The last AP elective we have for sophomores is AP Statistics. Statistics introduces students to concepts and tools for collecting, analyzing, drawing conclusions from data. Students learn to interpret real-world data and communicate their statistical findings. The prerequisite for AP Statistics is either completion of Algebra 2, or they can take AP Statistics concurrently with Math 10H as a sophomore. Question? Yeah, probably, I would say, oh, yes. So from the question is, from the students that are currently in Math 10H, in addition, what of the three AP electives would they take? I would find, right, I would say a majority of them do take it, and because it has different options for them. So the ones that prefer the computer science, they tend to take that as an elective, or they can pursue the statistics. So a good amount of our sophomore class do take an AP course. And this is just our pathway for the option of our course.
Thank you, Dr. Gorman.
Yep.
That is definitely a good question for Dr. Gorman. So the question is, we have a new course that many ninth graders are in, which is an Intro to Computer Science. And so which AP course would they be best suited for?
So I think it depends on their success in that course. If they really enjoy the makeup of the Intro to Computer Science, that's more geared towards AP Computer Science principles with the Python computing language. If they want to push themselves a little more to a more rigorous programming like Java, they could take the AP Computer Science A. So it really depends on the student and what they prefer. Right. So they could, what they could do is take the AP Computer Science principles as a sophomore, and then the AP Computer Science A as a junior, and then as a senior, we offer a third year that's connected with Carnegie Mellon University. So we do have really a 4-year sequence for the computer science.
Thank you, Dr. Gorman. I would add to that, as I will often advise, if your child is confused or concerned, have them talk to their teacher. You know, this is how I've been doing, this is what I've learned. Where do you think I should go? And at least just to solicit their advice, because the teacher has seen their performance throughout the year and can give some good insight into where they are. Now we have our humanities program. And first up, the chair of our English department, Miss Eileen Mills.
Good evening, everyone. I know that you're here tonight because you want the best possible experience for your child while they're students here at Schreiber. So let's talk about what that looks like when they're in the English department. One of the questions that we get asked most frequently about our program is, why don't we have an honors option at the freshman level for your kids? And the simple and honest answer is that our current freshman program is the rigorous option that we provide for your students to get them prepared to be successful in all of our classes at the high school in the English department. Students will be learning how to close read a text, write analytically, and to engage in a really productive classroom discussion, one that looks closely at the text, one that asks them to read with care and insight in ways that they have not experienced as students in the middle school. We really focus on teaching them how to think as they write, like learning to think through writing is a really important skill that many are not familiar with. Learning how to engage with the text and to speak critically about speak critically about their reading and the words that the author uses in order to convey their message. And so your child will read challenging text in freshman English. They will write analytical responses, and they will learn how to participate meaningfully in those discussions I mentioned. That's the work that really prepares them to be successful in our program from 10 through 12. Once they go through freshman English, then they have the opportunity to take an honors course at the sophomore level. Sophomore honors is really where students step into a faster pace and more demanding workload. Students typically read 25 to 35 pages a night. We're asking them to read closely, not to skim the material. They are expected to come to class ready to engage in meaningful discussion with their peers and their teacher. The texts are rich. They begin the school year with a 19th century British literature, which is foreign to them. Foreign, but not too hard, right? It's just different. I'll get to that in just a moment. But the reading is dense and the language is demanding. But trust when I tell you that we look very carefully at our freshman students and we encourage them into the sophomore honors program when we know that they're ready. And so we really think our program looks very well that way. I would say to you that the best indicator of whether or not your child is ready for sophomore honors is what you see at home. You know, are they doing the reading with fidelity? Are they interested in the writing process? Do they like to talk about their writing? Do they like to talk about what they're reading? If the answers are yes to those questions, then absolutely, they should absolutely take the challenge of sophomore honors. I will say that there is an adjustment period for many of our students. If your child is a rising 10th grader taking sophomore honors, don't be surprised if they come home in September saying like, gosh, this is really hard. That's okay. I always tell parents and students, yes, it's hard, but you're ready for it. It's not too hard, it's just different. And so sometimes students freeze when they are approached or when they receive material that seems harder than they've experienced in the past, like 19th century British writing, but they're ready for it and they're capable for it. We teach them that rigor, we teach them the grit to get through it, and they really do learn the stamina to become really careful readers. So I would say to them, it's just different. Keep at it. You're going to get it. And I can say confidently that by the end of October, early November, our students have really settled into the course, and they're really glad that they took it and proud of themselves for, facing a challenge and being successful. So, next year, we are very excited to offer a brand new course to the English program. It's not an English course, it's an elective course. I will explain that in just a moment. But this is something that we're really excited about. We've talked about it for a number of years, and we've finally been able to make it happen. It is a class that is open to students in grades 9 through 12. And it is like I said, not a traditional English course. It is a research class. It is a class where students learn to evaluate sources and also to create evidence-based arguments. It's really important. In fact, I think this is a class that most honors and AP teachers, they're the skills that they expect them to have already. And so we will be teaching them these skills to be successful in all of their honors and AP classes. That's not to say that only ninth grade students should take it. It is open to ninth and 12th grade students. It is a course for which students are sort of met where they are. They are asked to evaluate and come up with questions of interest to them. Real world topics, things that they find interesting or fascinating. If your child is someone who likes to ask questions and to kind of find and discover answers to those questions, this is a wonderful class for them. There is an opportunity to do research. There is an opportunity, as I said, to evaluate sources. They then will write and also get presentation skills. There's group presentation projects in this class and individual presentation projects. And so lots of work to do. If your child is ready for the challenge, it really is a wonderful opportunity for your child. It is an AP class, and it culminates in an AP exam. And so it's like divided into different segments. I explained it to the 8th grade students when I visited Weber more in depth, but essentially, first part of the course is they work with a group and they conduct research under the same question, a small group. They write their own individual papers that get submitted to the college board. They also do a group presentation of their findings. The second part of the course is more in-depth. It's a longer research question. Those questions are sort of guided by the materials that the college board provides under a question that they establish, but they can then develop their own research question, write a longer paper, and do their own individual presentation. And then, like I said, the course culminates in the exam in May. So the 2 papers get submitted to the college board, and the presentations are graded by their teacher. And there's a 2-hour exam in May. Yes, that's correct. Yes. That's correct. Well, I'm sorry, yes, I can repeat the question. The question is the AP seminar class a prerequisite for the AP research class? And the answer is yes. We're not offering the AP research class next year because we couldn't offer it before kids took the AP seminar class. But it is part of the capstone program. And in order to receive a capstone diploma, students would take AP seminar, AP research, and 3 additional AP classes. And they have to score at least a 3 on all of those exams in order to get that diploma. The question, is it going to replace our research program? It is, I would say that it is something that is a really wonderful opportunity for students who are not participating in the research program to get their research skills through this avenue. Okay, is there no other questions? I'll hand it back over to Mr. White.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. And just to clarify that answer a little more, so that question was about our research program in math, science, and social science versus the AP research program. They are just different tracks. And so this research program is more aligned with what we think about in terms of maybe humanities research, looking at working on an essential question, and not necessarily going into a lab, where in the science research program or in social science or math, you might be going into a lab, working with a mentor, working with a professor, et cetera, to do your research. So they're just very different tracks. That's really what it comes down to clarify that. Okay, thank you, Ms. Nelson. Next up is social studies, Mr. Larry Schultz.
Hi, good evening. So in social studies, we believe very strongly that 9th grade is a transition year. And going from the middle school to the high school is a important transition. It's an important period of growth and heterogeneous learning opportunities we see as the best path forward and provides them with the necessary skills. Now, we have the luxury in the social studies department of having 8 AP options starting in 10th grade. So The opportunities are there. So most of my focus will be on 10th grade. And as you can see, everyone takes Global 1, nice, simple, straightforward. Global 1 teaches the important skill sets that will be necessary for Regents track or AP track students, because it teaches document analysis, source analysis, understanding perspective, bias. These are the cornerstones of both the Regents and the AP exam, which are now more closely aligned than ever before. Just the skill level and the reading complexity, it really separates them. By 10th grade, our two main choices for honors is AP World History Modern and AP European History. I'm going to start with AP World History Modern. We brought this in about 7 years ago. This is the course that we usually get about 8 to 9 sections of AP in 10th grade, and about 5 or 6 of them is usually chosen for this course. This is a course that is about breadth, okay? It is covering 800 years of history from 1200 to the present, 6 continents, and everything that happens in between. So there's no conceivable way possible you can discuss everything that happened in that time period. So we take selected case studies, selected examples, selected readings, and we look for themes. We look for interacting, cross-cutting themes that unite society from 1200 to the present, usually things like globalization, cultural exchange, cultural syncretism. And it starts with Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan gets credit for creating the modern world. Way to go, Genghis. He left his DNA everywhere, and so here we are. Literally and figuratively, but it's a whole nother story. There's 34 million living relatives today. But either way, this is AP World History. So if you want a kind of a surface view of history, this is what we offer. Document analysis is an important aspect of this. And it's usually not the typical documents you're going to be expecting. It's going to be a 14th century Chinese merchant's receipt. Okay, so it's going to be things like that, things that you can't necessarily prepare for other than understanding the themes and concepts that go with it. It's a very conceptual-based exam. Nope, I go this way. Counterintuitive. AP European History is a course of depth. Okay, we're looking at just one continent over the last 600 years. So it's significantly less, but it's a continent, Europe, that, as you're aware, plays a very important role in modern history. I'm speaking to you now in a European language on the American continent. That's because of Europe's legacy. So it's very in-depth. A lot happens. This has focuses on everything from literature to art history, art analysis, religious analysis, economic and political system analysis. It's a very in-depth course. If you're a fan of traditional history, this is the course for you. This is about as close to kind of traditional history as you're going to get. Lots of reading. Both of these courses have lots of reading and expectations for that. But this one has, let's say, more archaic reading in that it's, very traditional European style writing, and that presents a challenge for students to learn this whole new vernacular. In social studies in general, we have the 2 options here. Just note that if your children decide that they don't want to take AP and they don't stay with it, they will go to Global 2. Okay, you don't go from AP Euro to AP World. The courses are just radically different. It'd be like kind of, jumping into a pool unprepared. So in order to give the best success, if they do leave, they go to Global 2. Now, how we assess a recommendation in our department is based upon the overall cumulative work of the first 2 quarters. Okay? In Global 1, if you're maintaining an A average overall, you would get the recommendation of your teacher. Okay? There is a waiver process, of course, but that's how the recommendations are given. Okay. So as you go forward, we have, like I said, 8 different AP courses. 10th grade kind of just opens the door with World and Euro. 11th grade, you have APUSH, AP United States History, and you can take AP Psychology in 11th or 12th grade. And in 12th grade, we have many electives of AP. AP Macro Microeconomics, it's taught as one course, but there's 2 exams, 6 credits. AP US Gov, which is kind of like the more government-focused, like sequel to AP US History. And then AP Comparative Gov, which is 6 governments around the world and comparing their styles of government. I find there's a high correlation between students that take AP European History and want to take AP Comparative Gov. Kind of like it's the kids who really enjoy history and learning about it from there. Yeah. Okay, so what's the recommendation for World versus Euro? Very often, the teacher can make an assessment based upon their experience, but they will usually ask the student, like, what's your level of interest? What excites you? We also come around. I usually go around to all the classes and I make a presentation, so they have an informed choice. But they would have the option to take both, but it's going to depend, do they want to do a kind of a summary course, which is like AP World, or do they want to really sink their teeth into history in AP Euro? Euro has the perception of being harder, but I don't necessarily say that's true. I think it's just more of a niche interest, if that makes sense. And I think it may not draw a more typical student as much as someone who has more of a history interest. Not that it's necessarily harder, per se. But yes, I've heard that. Okay.
She has asked this question.
Yeah. Yes. So in 10th grade, they take Global History 2, no matter what. They're in Global 2, AP Euro, AP World. Would the Euro kids have a disadvantage on the global regions? Ultimately, I would say no, because number one, these students do very well, but number two, the global regions is significantly less than the AP Euro exam, and there is a full month at the end of the year for them to review the other parts of the world they didn't go into as much depth, and there's enough time. But World, yes, World would cover everything and then some. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And it's not as much as you think, especially now that Goal 2 is only 1750 to the present. And Europe ends up touching every part of the world, so it's really not as much as you think. Yeah.
AP classes, the World and Euro, do you get the bump up on GPA, or is that
I mean, yes, as of now. I know grading is still in flux, but yes. Got it.
So the question is about a bump up for GPA for AP World, AP Euro. And so our AP courses do carry weight with them, and that goes on to their weighted GPA. The students have both a weighted and an unweighted GPA. Colleges look at both, and they kind of have a comparison point, but both of those courses are weighted the same.
I think we do get the bump up though for AP World, or?
So both AP Euro and AP World get an increase for the weighted GPA that is, and they're equal to each other. Yes.
Is it 0.3 next year, or is it?
At the current moment, it is 0.3. Yes. Honors and AP courses on the weighted GPA have the same level of weight. Okay. because they're both considered more rigorous curriculum. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the question is AP US history only available in the 11th grade?
Yes. But I also neglected to mention, though, that AP Euro, just so you know, we also open to 11th and 12th graders. So you have the opportunity to take it later on, because, again, more kids do choose World over Euro, not devastatingly more. Some schools just drop Euro entirely, but we kept it, and it's alive and thriving, multiple sections. But you can take it in 11th grade. Yes, from 11th to 12th grade, you have a lot of options, and there's no arrows. There were arrows, but they looked terrible, so I took them out before this presentation. It was confusing. I didn't like it. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. There's one other honors opportunity that often, that sometimes gets overlooked, and that is our world language. And so here is our world language chair, Ms. Carol Fronte.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So last but not least, okay, W, world languages. Okay, there we go. All right, so basically, when the kids come into ninth grade, there is no distinction, there is no honors distinction. They're all taught basically at the same level, and depending upon how they perform during their freshman year, the teacher will recommend them for honors level in the 3H, starting in level 3, right? Because they come in, they've completed their first year, 6th, 7th, and 8th comprise level 1 of the language. They come in at level 2, and then during their second year of the language, the second year, which is their freshman year, the teacher, based on their performance, will recommend them for 3H in the subsequent year. So 3H, it would be the pathway, 3H, then there would be 4H, I'm just telling you very quickly, and then it would culminate in AP Language and Culture. So the big difference between, let's say, a 3H class and a Regents class is that, as was said previously for all the other subjects, there is a lot of application. So what winds up happening? They're learning and they're reviewing the grammar that they've done previously, and now they're adding on. So let's say in a Regents class, they might not be as challenged insofar, excuse me. They might have a little bit more, let's say, guidance into how to conjugate a verb, a lot more sentence starters. The readings might be a little easier. Whereas in an honors level class, what will happen is the students will learn vocabulary that is dealing with the culture of that particular language, right? The cultures of that language. And they're also learning about real world topics, including art, including history, including current events that are going on around the world. They start talking, they start discussing in that particular language. And the majority of the class is taught 90% or more in the target language. So if they're studying French, it's going to be taught in French, Italian, of course Latin, no, because Latin is a dead language, but we still love Latin, right? But anyway, and Spanish. So that's what will happen. And the students are expected to try to communicate. And I say try because it's very hard when you're learning a language. There's a lot that really goes into it, speaking a language. So we want to see that they at least attempt, even if they don't know what they're saying, if they're making a mistake, that's okay, because that's the way we learn, right? And then we could do like it all as a class, collectively. How would we say that in the language? Like, I don't know how to say that in whatever language it might be. Yes, you do. Let's figure it out together. So there's a lot more difficulty, let's say. Another aspect would be, and I'm going to go on. Oh, I think I went the wrong way. Thank you. So here is, as we've already discussed, right, level 2, like in grade 9, and level 10, right, grade 10, they're going to go into a level 3H. Here we are. One more time talking about what's the difference between an honors level language class. 90% of the time, the class is taught in the target language, unless a teacher is teaching some type of grammatical concept that might be a little bit more difficult. They might switch back and forth to English, but we really try and keep it in the language. The difficulty with that is, as well, is that the students will say, my teacher, she only speaks Spanish. I don't understand the words she's saying. But that's the whole point, right? And we try to reassure them that little by little, they'll get to understand what the teacher is saying. They'll pick up the words and the nuances of each and every language. As we said, the thematic vocabulary. So for instance, like what we're expecting students to do at a 3H level, they have to read. So they're learning new vocabulary based on whatever topic they might be working on. They have to read through, they have like a word bank. Sometimes they don't even have a word bank of, let's say, the verbs or whatever it is. They could be nouns, they could be adjectives, whatever that vocabulary was. They have to read through those sentences and say, okay, what was that vocab that we learned? Okay, I have to read through this sentence and I have to figure out what I have to put in there. And they find that to be the most challenging thing. But after a while, as Ms. Mills said before, the students, they get accustomed to that and they do very well. And that will lead them to the subsequent years for H and AP Language and Culture, where they're talking about themes that they're discussing, which we do in those classes, and we try and start it early on in level 3H. And one last thing, I always say that language is very multifaceted in the sense that first they're learning a language which consists of grammar, it consists of vocabulary, little other nuances. Then the next thing we do is we try to teach them these real world topics, whether it be current events, art, culture, within the language. And we use the language as a vehicle to teach those things. After that, we're expecting the kids to develop fluency. So we're expecting them to develop auditory skills, oral skills where they're able to answer and speak to somebody, which is a really very difficult task to do. And of course, they're expected to like research just like they do in other subjects and then come back and report. So there are the 3 modes of communication, which are interpretive, reading and understanding, or listening, being able to understand what somebody's saying to you. Of course, then there is the interpersonal, the speaking back and forth, whether that be an oral skill, if you're speaking to somebody, or whether it be in an email, writing, answering something that was given to you in a written format. And then, of course, the last one is presentational. They do a lot of presentations in the language because that gives them an opportunity to use what they've learned and to present their research to their classmates, their peers, and also to their teachers. So, and then, as I said before, the language, AP language culminates in senior year. But we're building, we're adding on to those skills little by little. We always start, every year when you start language, we have to review what was done previously, and then you add on. So, that's the language program, the honors language program in AP. Yes? Yes. Okay, so in sophomore year, level 3, whether they're in 3H, whether they're in 3R, they both culminate with the FLACS exam, checkpoint B. So that would be checkpoint B. The difference is that the Regents exam, they don't teach really that, I mean, they do teach past the exam. They expect them to have these skills. But the 3H goes way beyond what they're expected to do on that checkpoint B exam in sophomore year. So that's the difference. Right, because once they're done with the FLACS, they're considered to be in a checkpoint C class. So 4H would be a checkpoint C class, and means the AP exam for language and culture is considered checkpoint C. So checkpoint A is in 8th grade, checkpoint B is in sophomore year, and anything after that, subsequent to that, will be considered checkpoint C. Yes. Okay, so level 2, your question is, what is the difference between parlantes and level 2 in Spanish? So we have a track that is a native track for kids that might already speak Spanish or might be heritage speakers. So they need to take an exam in 8th grade, and based on how they perform on that exam, they're placed into that track. So a lot of times the skill sets are very different. Those kids who might hear a language at home or might know how to say a couple of things, or they might be even fluent, they don't need the same skill. They have a different skill set insofar as they might not even be honor students. You have all students mixed together, right? And they follow each other on their track, on the native track that we have. So it starts off with parlantes. They would go into intensive 2 and 3. They would then go into advanced variedades, Espanol, and then they would go into, finally, in senior year, they would go into the it's called accelerated AP Spanish and Culture, only for the simple reason that, one more time, these are kids that have a different skill set. They know vocabulary, so the other kids are learning vocabulary for the first time. These kids, a lot of times, are able to speak, whereas your monolingual or your English dominant children are not, they're learning those skills, how to speak the language. So they're learning the same thing. The level of difficulty perhaps might be more like you could do a more advanced reading with kids that are in the native track, because they do have all of that knowledge. They know the language up to a certain point, whereas the other kids, it would be a little bit more difficult. But basically, another difference is the kids in the honors. They're primarily really all honor level students. In the native track, you might have kids that are honor students, that are not, that are like regular students, like, regent students. So you might have more of a diversity in that group. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat that, please? No, that track would be parlantes as a freshman. Then would be, it's called intensive 2 and 3 because they do more advanced work. They try and really speed it up because these kids do have that skill set of the language. Then they go into variedades, still discussing, still doing things like they would do like in the 3H. They're still learning grammar. They're still talking about cultural concepts. They're still talking about real world, events, current events. And then with all that same information, like I said, they just have a different skill set. They don't really have to practice speaking, whereas the other kids have to learn how to speak. Yes, absolutely, but they're on, of course they are. They could go to, the reason why they were always kept separate is only because a lot of times the kids that have like some language ability, they might be a little bit bored because the other kids are learning everything for the first time. So they don't have to learn the vocab because they already know that vocab. That's the only reason why. And of course, in the native classes, it's taught 100% in Spanish. So I hope I answered your question. And are there any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ferrante. As we wrap up this evening and think about other questions and think about where our particular families and children might fit into this, I want to kind of put two thoughts into your head. One is to remember that it is a transition for those families coming into Schreiber for the first time. And so that first beginning, there is a little bit of a ramp up. it might be a little bit difficult. I think Ms. Mills was talking about how the students get adjusted to that level of work, right? And so that's true of all classes, and it's especially true of honors classes. It takes a little bit of time to adjust to that level of work. And so also, so keeping that in mind, there are 3 opportunities for incoming 9th graders to be involved in honors or AP. That doesn't mean that a student needs to be in all 3, right? So there's math, there's biology, and there's AP Seminar. AP Seminar they can take in freshman year or sophomore year or junior year, they can take that later. A student who's thinking about taking honors for the first time, maybe start with 1. Take a small step. See what feels right. A student that's been really strong for their 3 years at Weber, that's, you know, getting those A's and is ready for honors math, maybe that student is ready for 2 or maybe 3. But remember, that answer is different, and that answer is individual for each family, for each child. As you can see, we have so many honors and AP opportunities here. There is no way that a student could take them all. And so thinking about trying to do that will make your head spin. We didn't even touch on the AP arts, right? So we have AP art history, we have AP photography, we have AP, regular AP studio art. Students can get honors credit in music. We can get, in 11th grade, they can get honors credit in some technology courses, in engineering, in architecture. There are so many opportunities. And so there's no race to get them all in. It's about what fits right now. Let's say this again and again. And for the parents here who are closer to my generation and the students, I may sound like a broken record. The students listening may not understand that analogy. But it really is about that fit. It really is about what is right for you and your family. If there are any questions, we can certainly answer them. Please, it's fine. Yeah. So the question is the capstone diploma, and what does that involve? And so the capstone diploma involves taking AP Seminar, AP Research, and then 3 additional AP courses. Right. Right. Yep. And then in order to get that diploma, you need to have a 3 or higher on those exam scores. Okay. Other questions? Yes. So the question is, especially for an incoming 9th grader, how do you weigh sports into that equation in terms of what's right for your family? That is a really hard question to answer because that is so individual. I can tell from my personal experience when I rode crew in college, and I know when we were in season, I was more efficient with my work. I got everything done because there was a 20-minute window and I was getting something done, right? And so students often, and actually data shows us that students in season actually tend to perform better academically because they have that structure. That being said, if for your child sports is the end-all be-all, and in addition to playing baseball, let's say, they also have private lessons and private coaching, and they have a pitching coach and all of those other things, there's a lot of extra time involved. And so that really depends on what is that balance like for your child. And it will be different for a freshman when their season is. And so if they are a fall athlete, again, the high school athletics are a step up from middle school athletics in terms of time commitment and all of that. So now that's a little bit different than if the sport is that spring sport, which may be baseball or lacrosse. So they have time to kind of adjust themselves and then get ready for their sport. Other questions? Great, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Arini, our guidance director, would like to add a thing.
Hi, everyone. I'll be very quick, I promise. So I work with the counselors across the district. My name is Justin Arini. I'm the director of guidance. So I work with both the Weber and the Schreiber counselors. I just wanted to remind you before you leave this evening, next Friday, March 13th, will be the final day that students can submit waivers, okay? And as a reminder, for those that are not familiar, the waiver is what they have to complete and what you have to sign off on if they want to take a course that they were not recommended for, okay? Now, where this plays for particularly our 8th graders going into 9th grade, which is common, would be the bio honors. In order to facilitate and make this as easy as possible, rather than go through the paper waiver form, we have an opt-in Google form that was linked in the letter that you received. So just a reminder, if after tonight you go home, you talk it over with your kiddos, you make a decision, and you think that you want your child to waive into a course they weren't recommended for or opt in to bio honors for next year in 9th grade, just please either fill out that paperwork or fill out that electronic form and get it in by Friday, because Friday the 13th will be our hard deadline. At that point, we won't be able to take any more changes because that information has to be sent over to the superintendent's office so that the budget can be completed and so that our high school can start working on a master schedule. Any questions about waivers or opting in or course recommendations? Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Arini. If there are individual questions, if you want to chat about something for your particular child, we'll hang out for a few minutes. But other than that, have a great night. Thank you for attending. For those of you who are watching online, thank you for watching, and have a great evening.